Uh,
Everybody, thank you for participating today. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022, and this is a public meeting of the Maynard Planning Board. The meeting is being recorded. For the people who are participating virtually, you are muted. If you would like to speak, please, raise your hand when the opportunity is provided, and we will unmute you. So Chris also is not here at the moment, but he will be, he is in the time call, so he will join us in progress. Let's do roll call.
And just remember that our owl is a little farther away today, so just be sure to speak up.
I didn't repeat what you said.
I said our owl is far away today, so be sure to speak up.
Right. Can you hear me okay? Raise your hand if you can hear me okay.
Okay.
I see one.
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay. We're good. All right, let's do a roll call. Jim Coleman,
here.
Bill Crenshaw,
Here.
Natalie Robert,
Here.
Annette Garavini here. Great. Welcome, everybody. We have on the agenda two sets of minutes. We have meeting minutes from October 11th, 2022 and October 25th, 2022. Why don't we begin with the October 11th meeting minutes? And we'll give you a moment to look them over. And if when you're ready, let me know. We'll entertain a motion in 50 minutes. Let's see.
I gave you an extra table because I was gonna put you straight at the end, but I know, you know. You and Bill need your room, so. It's my compliment. Okay,
So I'm good with the minutes and happy to make.
Please.
Hope to approve the minutes of October 11, 2024.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's do the roll call. Natalie,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jen Coleman,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that's the minute reflect that we have received the October 11th minutes, 5 to 0 vote. Now let's move on to the October 25th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 25th, 2022.
Great, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. Roll call vote, Annette?
Here.
Jim?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the October 25th minutes are approved by 5.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if you'd like, before we get, as Chris, we're waiting for Chris to arrive. I can give you, planning update, if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great, in particular because I am in a butter to the project, that's the
Right.
subject of the public hearing.
Right.
So I will be recused, so
Right.
very good time to do that public meeting.
Excellent.
I can go to the public hearing.
So we have two pieces of news. First is, master plan steering committee. With a lot, many thanks to Julia, is, going to have a meeting on, December.
Fifth.
Fifth. And, and Julia's created a new, response sheet that's gonna make it a lot easier. If you remember, last year was the first year we solicited responses from the boards, how we're working towards master plan goals. And the idea is not to necessarily be, punitive or anything on that. It's just a question to gauge the progress, which is what the master plan calls for. It was cumbersome to say the least, the first year, it was some growing pains, but the Wiz over here did a great job and has designed a new, I don't know how you, what do you call it, hold on. So,
So it's a Google form. So if you guys have ever done a survey or a CP, it's a very simple form that you will fill out. Actually, I think Bill is going to discuss some of the stuff with you when we finalize that form. But the goal is to try to bring uniformity to the data. So what we had last year was an Excel spreadsheet, and they were open-ended questions, and they were really hard to analyze on like, are we making progress? Because everyone is either really proud or, wants to explain kind of why they didn't do something or they did do something. So we got these like paragraphs, and I mean multiple paragraphs within this Excel spreadsheet. And then we also had people answering other people's questions. So, there are in planning, for example, like conservation is a supporting partner. I didn't do this, but some other people would answer the planning's goals as a supporting partner when we weren't looking for that information. We're really looking for the main contributor. So that's the goal of, the new form. And I think once we will be able to also get that data and analyze it within days versus months. And then be able to actually bring it to you guys and talk about, okay, here's where we're at with these certain goals. Or one of the questions I ask is, did you not complete this goal because it was confusing or misunderstood? And so that's something that we can all talk about, in looking at the greater master plan. So if you guys have goals that are assigned currently to the planning board that you think are confusing, or misunderstand, we really want to know that so we can bring it to the implementation committee and reevaluate how we move forward.
so it will be, so far as planning stuff goes, it will be a pretty exciting meeting. Another one. The second thing is I got everybody registered who wants to be registered for the classes going on. I think everybody's, I think appreciated those have been there. So the third thing is, that we got additional clarification on MBTA community status, which, as you recall, we have to be compliant with it or file an action plan by the end of January. And essentially, the rules are a bit confusing still, but a lot of our downtown, well, not all of our downtown overlay district, all of our healthcare industrial district are all ineligible because of our inclusionary zoning, which is really, as I explained at a meeting, it's kind of counterproductive to what the state is trying to do for creation of affordable housing. But it is what it is. So the decision that we came up with, the best way to address our consistency by January would be use our powder mill redevelopment, our powder mill corridor redevelopment plan, use the new district that's going to be created for that, make sure it's compliant with the MBTA community. And that'll drive it. The bad news is that it negates kind of the teeth of some of our inclusionary zoning, But on the other hand, maybe we can come up with some incentives to create additional affordable housing, which is Bill and I were just talking before we came. We are still, with the new numbers come out, we're gonna be down somewhere around what, from 9% to 8%, Bill, you said, you thought?
8.8.
So we have to really think seriously about creating new housing in that. It's gonna fall in those brackets and how we're gonna do it. But that seems to be the path of least resistance. I met with the Commonwealth head of housing in the DHCD, and it just seems like we're gonna fall between the cracks if we don't do this, and I don't want that. Just a reminder that if we're not consistent with that, and we're deemed not inconsistent, we can lose our ability to apply for a MassWorks grant. And we're looking for a sizable one in the next year, you know, for Justin with some of the wastewater and sewage, so we can, and the water as well. So that's where we're at with that, and
So we're gonna have a chance to go through that in detail, because I'm concerned that we've got inclusionary zoning. That's the only thing that's gotten us any
I agree. Yeah.
affordable housing.
Well, you know, the thing is, Bill, here's Chris, that's a good question, Bill. Here's the deal. Our action plan isn't necessarily the finished product at all. It just shows the state, demonstrates that this is where we're working and how we're gonna work towards achieving this. So I think we'll have 2 years to tweak it. But the thing is that we just look at it that, if we look at it and say, that's the way, you know, we're going to, our strategy to address and meet the requirements for the MBTA communities is going to be through our power law. And, you know, the last thing we want to do is adjust our inclusionary, like I said, and the bonus units are probably another reason why these have been successful. So maybe we can work something out and just not mandate, what was it, 20%? No, they adjusted it. Was it 20 or was it 15 or something? Do you remember? The maximum,
I think it was 20.
because it was 10, which is crazy, because we remember, we require up to 25% with rental units. So I think they're up to 20, but, and it still may shake out. The important thing is that I get an action plan to the state by the end of January, and it's not gonna say this is exactly how the zoning is gonna be, but it demonstrates that we're serious about it. We have 2 grants to create the zoning already in place. So we have, we got a grant from, oh my goodness, MAPC, and what's the other one, the EEA. So, I mean, we're about as serious as we can be, so. And is there anything else you think that we have for this?
So they came out with a compliance model, literally like 2 hours ago. So I'm looking at it now. I haven't had a chance to really look at the model. It is the GIS model. And so, you know, there's some issues there, but we are working on it, and so we'll update you guys either through via email or having an additional hearing on how this compliance model works and how we fit into it.
That's what I got.
Okay, well, that's exciting.
Well,
I will express my sense of fear over the Google spreadsheet or whatever it is we're gonna get.
well, it's well intent, the whole thing is well intentioned. The problem is, we're doing.
You guys aren't gonna be having to fill out.
No,
Bill is filling it.
Something we have to complete.
No.
oh, no.
With the new technology.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's rooted in something that we're trying to do right. It's
Don't worry, I'm pushing new technology only on.
So, this is here, welcome. And so, where we are is we've been through the minutes and we've completed the minutes. And, we've been waiting your arrival to start the public hearing. Because I'll be recused from, this before you take discussion. And, this would be a good moment to pass the gavel back over to you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little tired, I guess. I will open up the steering for the Maynard Crossing establishments. And this is for the request for a special permit to approve the modified exhibit E approved sign plan. So let's see, for tonight's, for Maynard Crossing, do we have capital projects speak with us tonight?
Yes.
Phil, how about you give us some
Yep.
introduction?
Sure, we have Bob DePietri of Capital Group, and we have Jim Boston, who's the leasing agent for Capital Group, and Maynard Crossing. Just to reflect what we're doing. The original decision from 2017 contained the general sign specifications based on the original concept plan. It's been amended, I believe, once. You're being asked to amend the exhibit controlling the number of sign and the sign permitted at the establishment. There is, I let the applicant explain why they need additional signage. But you have a graphic in front of you that explains what the actual signage requests are. And we have a in front of you, I printed the applicant's initial application letter there too. So basically, the number of wall signs now allowed is 49, and they're requesting to up the total to 57 tenant wall signs. So with that, I'll pass it over to the applicant if there's anything else I can clarify.
Phil, before we go to the applicant, can you just remind the board what exhibit E is? and what it has to-
Yeah, exhibit E is, there's actually, I printed out it's on the applicant's page you have there, but what it is an exhibit to the original decision that specifies the number, I think it was the size and the of the signage for the project. The planning board is authorized to amend a number of items in the project, anticipating that there were going to be changes as the project this size goes along. And signage is specifically called out as a component that the board can amend. What can't be amended is an increase in the size.
And when you say increase in size, total square footage or total?
Yeah, you
size?
can't have a larger sign than is specified. And that's called out in the zoning bylaws, everything else is. So that's what you're being requested to do.
Okay, I'm happy to turn it over to the Capital Group. Hi, Bob. Hi, Bill. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Chris. Just following up what Bill said, so basically what we're trying to do is the initial plan from 2017, the signage plan contemplated a lot more bigger tenants, which would have resulted in bigger signs and less signs. And what's coming now is we're getting a lot more smaller tenants. So we're not needing the big signs like in the original approved concept plan. There were 4 what we call tier 1 signs, and those are the largest signs, which are similar to Market Basket. On the revised plans, we're only proposing one sign, which is the Market Basket plan. On the original approved concept package, there were 12 tier 2 signs. We're proposing a total of 18 tier 2 signs on the revised concept plan. And then tier 3 signs, which are the smallest signs and most of the signs that you see over there. there was originally 13 of those. And we're proposing 30 on the new plan. So on the base signs, going from 29 to a potential total of 49. And like Bill was saying, based on being able to swap a bigger sign for a smaller sign, even under the original proposal, we could go to 49 signs. Under the revised proposal, that could go as many as 57 signs, with swapping bigger signs for smaller signs. So basically what we're looking to do is amend the language in Exhibit E, Section 1.A.1, which clearly reads, one sign shall be allocated for each circular sign symbol indicated on the approved signage concept plan for a total of 29 building mounted wall signs of all types, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 in aggregate. For each indicated Tier 1 sign symbol, the developer may substitute up to 3 Tier 2 or 5 Tier 3 signs. For each additional Tier 2 sign symbol, the developer may substitute 2 Tier 3 signs, such that the total number of signs on the site shall not exceed 49 signs. What we're proposing to modify that language is the following. One sign shall be allocated for each circular sign symbol indicated on the approved signage concept plan for a total of 49 building mounted wall signs of all types, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 in aggregate. For each indicated Tier 1 symbol, the developer may substitute up to 3 Tier 2 or 5 Tier 3 signs. For each additional Tier 2 sign symbol, the developer may substitute 2 Tier 3 signs, such that the total number of signs on the site shall not exceed 57 signs. And that's basically the change that we're requesting.
That's on the back page here. As I recall, there's a figure that shows this, Bob. Is that correct?
Plan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, there's an amended signage concept plan dated November 14, 2022. And that plan was
You bring that up?
the existing signs plus the proposed signs.
I'm just gonna bring it up on the screen here, Bob,
Okay,
unless you wanted to go a different direction, but for me, it's.
oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
And once we get the figure up, it'd be helpful for you to walk us through what these changes are being shown here. What I'm interested to see is where the distribution of the new signs are going to be.
Nope.
All right.
Okay. Sorry. There we go.
There we go. Can you see that, Bob?
Yes. This plan shows in maroon all the existing signs. Everything that's in maroon is an existing sign on the project. What's shown in yellow is, again, potential additional signs, and this is really based only on where we've taken some of the buildings and just divided them up to the maximum extent possible to show potentially where these signs, could be located in the, in the future once these buildings are completed, mainly on the R3 building, which is on the northern side of the property between R2 and R4, and then the R1 building sort of in the center of the property on the western side of the property right there. So in these, again, these are just projections. If bigger tenants come, there'll be less signs. I don't think we could get any smaller, most of these spaces. We've tried to look at the maximum possible signs, but this is what we came up with based on the, the current information. We have current market information and where we think the, the project's gonna go.
So to be clear, R3 is still in construction, and I'm saying this for the record, I drove by it last night. Right?
That's correct, Chris, yes.
R1 is not in construction phase at this time, is that correct?
Not at this time.
Was there an initial sign plan like this that was provided initially?
Yes, it was part of the concept plan package. It's attached to the original planning board decision from 2017.
Is that something that you can bring up, Julia, too?
Just give me a minute.
Okay. Sorry about that, I'm asking questions here, but if there's anything else you would like to provide the board, please continue.
So if I could add, this is Jim Vaz, I'm the leasing manager, and this is one of my pet projects here. So just to add to what Bob is saying is, as we all know and have read, things have changed in the retail environment. It started probably 5 or 6 years ago. Amazon accelerated it and COVID kind of blew things away, where we're seeing these larger tenants. I think we had thought at one time we could see a TJ Maxx or Kohl's in this project. We have been told numerous times that they will not come. So in a larger building, you could have, I think like R2, I think we were thinking 3 tenants. And as you see there, the way things have changed exponentially in just a short time frame, we're looking at 8 tenants. So it's double the amount. The last few tenants that have opened at Jersey Mike's, we have a Verizon Wireless. They're all 1,200, 1,500 square feet. These large users are closing stores, and the ones they're opening, they're reducing by 30, if not 50%. So we're not the only project. This is happening around the country, and developers have to pivot. And as you see there, the R3A and R3B buildings, we had to pivot. Those were supposed to be for junior anchors. We could not find any that wanted to come, so we had to change the entire design of that building into smaller tenants, even to create a courtyard. So this is the reality we're all dealing with, and this is the reason why we're here. We just need more signage because there's a lot more smaller tenants that want to come to this development, and the larger ones, we just don't foresee, hate to say ever, but again, this is not the only town and city this is happening in. So that's why we're here.
Okay, so just one thing, if you're asking about like, does something like this look like with the points of where there are conceptual signs and what level? No, because we asked them to make this in September when we had met originally.
So when this plan was first approved many, many years ago, there was not a plan
That looks like this. There was
that shows where specific signs are going.
It gets,
My point is,
we can pull up the general.
what I'm trying to do is see if we can compare it to what was originally proposed. It just gives us a comparison point.
Yeah, why don't you pull up your concept? This is what was in the original concept plan. We can run through it here real quick. And it gives you general scale. It gives you general position.
And Bob, Bob or Jim, feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah, you could keep going. It actually is in this.
Yeah, it should be in there, Bill. If you keep going, I think it's in there.
There's a good comparative, and you can see how things have changed.
So these are all the concept signs. On the top of this is the concept, like the general concept plan.
Right.
Well,
It
it should
doesn't-
be- It's Should be in there.
We got to that, I think, Bob, I think what you're talking about would be the original decision. The planning board decision, not the concept plan decision.
No, there's a signage concept plan, Bill. It was. in the-
Okay, all right, it could be, yeah, all right.
Yeah,
If
you'll
you
come-
can find it, I can allow you to share your screen as well, if you
Yeah.
have.
That's,
Oh, okay.
you're asking a lot there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in here that talks about signage at this level, but because I remember having this meeting with you guys and we spoke about, wanting more of a visual to be able to kind of understand this, but I'm not seeing anything in here.
All right,
Oh,
well,
Oh, yeah, there, that's.
There it is. Yeah, just before the pylon sign.
okay, hold on. This is what we.
This is.
We asked because when you guys started proposed and current, that's what I think. We had changed, so here
Yes,
it
that's the
is.
sign. There it is. Yep.
Yep.
Figured it
That's
out
the
here.
one.
it's hard for us to see on this. Can you?
Yeah,
zoom
well,
into-
yeah, we can zoom it on.
Let's just give an example. Can we go to R3?
So, yeah, if you could see there, R3, it's actually one large building that.
Or just R2,
Or even
yeah.
R2 there, you can see.
That's a
it's-
better example.
Yeah, R2, we were proposing 2 tenants with 3 signs. And you can see in reality what the building looks like today. There are, what I say, 8 or 9 tenants, and they all are smaller in nature. And then if you go to R3, that is one big box that we were proposing, almost 1 anchor and 3 or 4 junior anchors with, you can see 25,000. The hardware store is probably 20,000. Well, we're not seeing those tenants. They are, and if they do come, they're closer to, like an Emerson is 5,000 square feet.
All right.
I think at one time, you see the pad D building up front, which is R7, correct? At one time, it was a CVS for the whole building. Well, that did not happen, so it is now an Emerson, a Jersey Mike's, a Verizon Wireless, and I have 2 more small vacancies to fill. So 1 tenant with 1 sign changed into, I need 5 or 6 signs.
Jim or Bob, is there anything else you would like to present? So here's how I feel like I'll proceed tonight. I'll bring it to the board, ask questions and comments. I'll ask for public comment at that point. And then afterwards, I'd like to talk about some of the other recent observations about the site. I think there's been some lighting things that have been going on in the background, Bill.
Yep.
But I'd like to cover here since we're all here.
Mhm.
And I had some ideas about sort of maintenance schedules and stuff like that myself, so, but I'd like to focus on the subject of the hearing first. So is there anything else you want to present, or can I go to the board for comments and questions?
No, I think we're all set, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'll go to the board, comments and questions from the board.
Like some help with the math. Can somebody give me a list of the existing number of 1, 2s, and 3s and proposed number of 1, 2s, and 3s as shown on the exhibit?
No.
I think more of maybe just a quick rundown or a table representation would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll put this up there.
That wasn't what I remember the.
We had the table that came in when we were working. With it. I don't know, it was never part of this.
Oh, they didn't.
No, this is.
So. I mean, counting off of here, I think I got 24 existing and 25 proposed, total of 49.
Yeah, that's correct, Bill. It's 24 existing signs.
Existing number 1 and proposed, no change in that, so stay at 1.
Correct.
For 2, 8 existing, and you're showing 10 more for a total of 18. And then number 3, 15 existing, and you're proposing 15 more as shown for 30. So. I guess I'm just a little, I'm wondering if the wording of the revision has to be as complicated as it was for the initial one, given that the initial one really didn't know how it was gonna be built out, and now you're much closer to understanding how it will be built out. Why don't we just say that there can be 49?
Yeah.
And I guess I'll add to that, the number comes to 49 as proposed, but the language, the last line of the revised language refers to shall not exceed 57. What's the difference of the 8 for? What's the request for the 8 difference?
So Chris, that was if, and I don't disagree with what Bill's saying, because I think we're far enough along in the project. Will be, just in case we not knowing the tenants, if we wanted to swap a tier 1 sign for a multiple tier 2 or tier 3 signs, or swap tier 2 sign for more tier 3 signs. But I think, I think, you know, I kind of agree with Bill saying, we kind of, if anything, there's gonna be less signs than this. I don't think there's ever be more than 49. What do you think, Jim?
No, I agree. I think if we do hopefully get the junior rank of the town's been asking for, they will want a large sign, and it's come down to such a cutthroat industry where they can go. If they can't get a sign, they literally will pass on a project. So it would be nice to have some flexibility that if we do kind of catch the big fish, we have the ability to do it.
Well, we're showing the tier 2 on that, so I think we've got that covered.
We do, okay.
I think what Bill's talking about is if the way it was originally designed, because we not knowing the tenants, you could swap out a big tier 1 sign for, I think, 3 tier 2 or 5 tier 3s, but I don't think we're gonna run into that situation. I think we've really, you know, refined and working with Bill and the building inspector, refined this plan so that it's, I think it's pretty predictable. If anything, there'll be less signs.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we can swap again with you're right, tier 3 is the smallest.
Yeah,
If we do end up with a tier 2, like some of these, I'm thinking we might have to split to smaller. I can swap out a 2 with a couple 3s.
yeah. I think I'm not uncomfortable, you know, capping it at the 49 that it currently is.
Yeah, that's
now.
fine.
I'm assuming that the extra 8 came from, to me, just looking at this, the way you guys have been dealing with it in the past, R1, which currently has 4 tier 2s, could be split further, resulting in 8 additional signs. That's what I'm guessing. If those bump down to to tier 3, that's what I'm guessing the.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Other comments from the board, questions? Jim, anything?
No,
And then,
Never do I.
okay. Hope you do. Anything else?
Just a general question of whether the site's current with various permit conditions and compliance with the operations manual and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about that next afterward, if that's okay with the board. I'd like to get through the sign conversation, at least have a general idea on our thoughts on that.
Well, I've been there often, and presuming that the new proposed signs are the same scale, I did not go back to look at the original language describing the signs exactly, but presuming that the 3-tier, 2-tier are the same as the ones that are currently there, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So Bob, what I'm hearing from you is 49 is a good number, and you're not looking to request a higher number that may allow for additional flexibility.
Yes, that's right, Chris. We can, on our proposed amendment, we can just see shall not exceed 49 signs. We're okay just leaving it at that, because I honestly, I don't even think we're gonna get to the 49, because that's the worst case scenario, if, you know, all the buildings were broken up to the maximum extent. So I think, you know, we're comfortable with that.
Okay, so essentially, the revision would only include the first line of that revision of that short paragraph.
Correct, correct. Yeah, everything else will remain the same.
So just a substitution, Bob, and then
So essentially, the only change then would be to delete those last two sentences. And then change the total signage from 29 to 49 in total.
That's
we-
correct.
Deleting it entirely? Are they gonna come in and try and put in 49 tier 1 signs? I know you're not. This is I'm just,
Well, I have a related question. So does this exhibit mean that that kind of sign has to go only in that spot?
No, I think it's the ability to swap them, Bill, you know, so for instance, you can swap a bigger tier 2 sign for more tier 3 signs on the bill on that particular building. I think the way it's, you know, worded, it still works. This just caps the total at the 49 versus, you know, the 57. So like I said, I don't think we're ever going to get to even 49, but if every building get broken down as to the maximum extent possible, we would, but you know, it's at some point, we're gonna end up with a bigger tenant or two, and we're not gonna need that. We just don't know when that is. But I think what this does is plan for the, you know, maximum breakup as possible.
So I'm tempted to also have a sentence in there that says for each tier 2 sign symbol on the exhibit, the developer may substitute 2 tier 3 signs. Still keeping the total at 49.
Yep,
You're not gonna do anything with a tier 1 sign, because that's the at market basket,
exactly.
or whether the tier 2s become 3s.
I mean, I feel like it would be beneficial to build in the flexibility for that, even if hopefully it doesn't end up occurring.
Right, so. Yeah, so for every tier 2 shown on this exhibit that we're referencing, they could become a pair. They could be replaced by a pair of 3s,
Mhm.
if you ever wanted.
So the sentence would just allow for a smaller sign.
Yeah, so we keep the last sentence is for each addition, but it would just say for each tier 2 sign symbol, the developer may substitute 2 tier 3 signs. And then we can such that the total number of signs, you know, will remain in that.
49.
Sorry,
Well, that's the requested.
49, yep. Yeah, because I don't want them to come back just to make a smaller sign.
So does this site plan imply that? So for example, since we're showing a site plan here, sign exhibit plan. And it shows that R1 has 4 signs on it, and you find that you need 5 in the future. Does that mean they need to come back to us, Bill Nemser? I'll say it again, if you go to
Yeah.
R1,
right,
R1 shows 4 proposed signs. And now
Right.
this plan is being submitted.
right. So they
If they want to, if for some reason the developer wants to divide it into 5 units, but not exceed the maximum number of signs allowed. Do they need to come back to us because this plan only shows 4 signs on the plan to
No.
R1?
no, if
Or if it's built out as it is, then yes, they will have to.
If they, well,
Need an additional sign. above
if you need above the 49 or whatever the number the board.
Base, that's the requirement.
Right.
as shown, which I realize it may not be, but
Mhm.
let's assume it is.
Mhm.
And it is filled and there are signs for all the tenants. If they then build R1 and they need more than 4 tenants, they are going to have to come back. before-
Oh, if they exceed, yeah, yes, you're correct. If whatever the board sets as the number, so it's 49, yeah.
That was from, that was to demonstrate that if R1 is subdivided into 8 instead of 4, that's where that flexibility goes. I mean, of course, it could be used other places too, but
Mhm.
that's the most. Well, yes, plus 4. 8 total.
Okay. Any other further comments from the board? So if I summarize the request, the request essentially, and its element is for 20 additional signs. The majority of them are smaller signs than the initial concept plan had. But still 20 additional signs. And I think the reasoning behind that, Bill, was we wanted to limit, well, I wasn't on the board when this occurred. The reason, can you help us understand what the intent of the reasoning for limiting the signs was?
The number signage?
Yeah,
Signs, the kind of part, 2 reasons. First was to set a general aesthetic. For the sign design, at the time, we had a design consultant come in and worked out during the site planning stage, there was a design consultant and a number of hearings that worked offline to design the initial designer questions about lighting, things, numbers of sign and practical considerations that were, the concept plan was 10,000 feet. And that was a thought of it. At the time, the approval, as you probably heard, was a bit lengthy. And I think that the understanding of the board, matter of fact, I'm certain. The understanding of the board was that this was the initial number was an insufficient number of signs if they did build out smaller tenants. And an issue was raised. So there is, I believe we've had one amendment since the initial approval in 2017. I think Market Basket. I think was there. And so that was the idea. So the general design is set. And that's what it was, what the market was uncertain at the time, it's uncertain now. And so I guess there was a understanding, well, clearly the zoning bylaws allow for changes, understanding that there would be some shifts, but the general concept plan has been adhered to, and I think was signed plan as well.
are these, Bob, are these lighted signs? Because I'm looking through the initial approval and this requested change. I know some signs are lighted and some are not, right? So where's the language for that? And how do we know which of these are gonna be lighted and which are not? Maybe.
That is
Bill
in-
and Bob.
Bob, do you remember, was that in Exhibit E?
I don't think that's an exhibit, E, Bill. I gotta,
I have to pull the original lighting specification.
yeah, it is, section C of exhibit E.
Section C of exhibit E.
Yeah, we can pull that up.
So are tier 3 signs lighted or not lighted, or can they be both?
They could be both, Chris. Yeah,
Okay, so the tier size doesn't give any indication about lighting.
correct.
Is there a limit on the number of lighted signs?
That's where I'm headed, yeah.
Scan copy.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no. Oh, F doesn't work.
All right, so as we go through that, what I'm gonna do is open up for public comment now, and then we're going to also discuss some of the other observations that we've made around town. I think there's been Bill, we've had some discussion about lighting, and I think there's some approval this week, some improvements on that this week.
Yeah,
Was there any other items that we wanted to discuss?
I think every code report we've had has been about hours of lighting.
Okay,
And I'll let the,
we'll talk about
Yeah,
through that, but I'll
yeah.
open up for.
I don't believe there's been any others, so.
Okay, I don't think.
Oh, we had some signage placed. There was a report of the leasing sign exceeded, the leasing sign in the front on the right of way exceeded the bylaws overall square footage, and there was a banner placed in a community area of the project. Building commissioners been out there on both of them, but everything is under his right now.
That's.
He's aware of it, and it's active right now.
So I'm gonna go to public comment and then we'll go back to, because then I want to figure out like, because we're asking for an additional 20-year, I want to have an understanding of. Are those lighted signs, non-lighted signs? Can we make that determination as part of this request or not?
Okay.
I don't see anyone online. Is it,
That's correct.
I'm only seeing 4 up there.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so please.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Trish Saunders, Statling Road. I am a direct abutter to the property, and I have one of the most bird's eye view, along with some of my neighbors of the entire property, because our houses are actually at a higher elevation than the property. I'd like to start my comments by acknowledging that it certainly is understandable, and in fact, in some ways imperative, that a developer of this sort be able to have enough signs to give every tenant a sign for their business. And I also feel motivated, as someone who has direct exposure to the lighting, to consider the implications of that additional lighting, because in fact, if the request for additional signs is granted, it does also compute, according to my calculations, to a potential greater total square footage of lighted signs in the property. To date, there have just been a number of ways in which the signs haven't been managed well. And so it is concerning that additional signs might be granted while the current signs are not being managed well. For example, there are a number of signs that are not going off at the time that is currently required by the operations manual, which is 11:30 p.m. The Dunkin', as a second example, the Dunkin' Donuts menu sign is a very large sign. Has a very strong white backlight that shines directly towards the Detling Road abutters. And that does not go off all night, and that is not reflected in the updated signage plan. In addition, in Exhibit E, there is a prohibition of reverse channel lighting signs to be facing Parker Street. And if I am correct in my interpretation of what a reverse channel lighting sign is, there are violations on the property of those types of signs facing Parker Street. And so I just wanted to call the board's attention to the fact that this request for more generous signage allotment comes with a history of a lack of responsible management of the signs that are up there now. I also think the NBOD and the zoning that guides it will, I think, create some imperative to consider what the implications on the abutting properties are. for changes that might come. And so with additional signs, the additional square footage, there is additional lighting disruption. And so I wonder if there may be mitigation or other management considerations for how that additional light pollution in the area might be mitigated. For example, in Exhibit E, and also in the town zoning bylaws, there is a statement that says that illuminated business signs must be off when the establishment is not in operation. And in the most recent version of the operations manual, a line was put in there that allows the business signs to stay on until 11:30 at night. Even though on my research, if I'm correct, no business in that establishment has posted hours to be open past 9 p.m. So those signs are all on for 2.5 hours after the latest establishment closes. Some close earlier than 9. And in my opinion, that creates unnecessary light pollution. It's also an energy conservation matter. And it doesn't feel like it really serves much purpose because there's not drive-by traffic going through the site once the last establishment is closed. The only traffic on the site is for the people who live back there, and they know full well what businesses are there. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to my concerns. And my request that some form of mitigation be considered, including possibly having the lights go off at or close to the time that the last business closes.
Thank you, Trish. Can I ask a couple clarifying questions?
Sure.
When you mentioned the Dunk's drive-throughs, I put Dunk sign, drive-through sign non-conforming, that's what I took out of that, but can you just elaborate so I understand what you're saying?
So Dunkin' Donuts has 2 signs on the outside upper of the building. One's I think says Dunkin' and one says D&D. They face different directions. There is also a brightly lit menu sign at the drive-through. It's fairly large. I would guess maybe the dimensions are probably 4 by 5.
Right where the speaker is, I'm assuming that's what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, and that it is very brightly lit.
Uh-huh.
And it does stay on all night.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is, for sure, yeah, many times.
Okay, so that's menu sign. So you mentioned reverse channel lighting, but can I, if it's okay, can I ask Bill to explain that?
Sure.
Bill, can you help me, or Bill, Bob, can you just let me understand what reverse channel lighting signs are? In this concept.
Yeah, at the time, this was discussed in the 2017 hearings, when we brought the design consultant in. The channel lighting that was done was,
I don't know what a reverse channel lighting sign is.
basically, yeah, what they were looking, at the time, the question was, if I remember, and this was 2017. Internally lit. Where they would put in an acrylic or a screen, lens over it with the sign, so the sign is internally lit. In this case, the question came up during the 2017 hearings. That everybody agreed they didn't want that, but they also agreed that an illumination that was practical would be. Do you remember what was the name they called that, Bob? At the time, it was the lighting behind
The backlit sign, Bill.
backlit.
Could I share my
Yes,
screen and
please,
show them?
yes, I'm just trying to understand what these are.
Right. So that was the thinking with that.
Yeah.
And that was the building commissioner designed, the design professional and also that's how that came about. This is what they wanted.
What's that? Is that the reverse?
Reverse, reverse.
Channel signs. So there's at no point is the light inside the sign. Like the Whole Foods, like that W, there's lights on behind it that are lighting, like illuminating it like a shadow.
Okay,
Right.
that's.
First, yeah,
Current regulations prohibit any of those facing Parker Street, correct?
And according to Exhibit E, that is correct.
Let me bring it back.
And
So
so
there was also, yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
hold on, so Trish, when you mentioned, I just wrote down reverse channel lighting signs, and maybe didn't quite understand what that meant. What was your comment regarding that?
That, as I read the regulations in Exhibit E, and I don't find anywhere that that regulation has changed, they're forbidden to be on the site if they face Parker Street. And there, if I'm understanding, and based on the illustration that was just put up there, I believe that there are 3 on the site and 2 face Parker Street.
Do you happen to have an idea which one?
Yes, Middlesex Savings Bank and 110 Road.
What is? And this isn't a question about the agreement. I don't understand what the problem is with those signs. I'm not saying there's
With the
not.
ones that were there?
Yeah.
No,
so-
that's what the board decided
But
on.
why did the board decide that
Aesthetic.
it's just pure aesthetics? Bob, do you have any insight on why those signs were not liked by the board at that time? And to be shown towards Parker Street?
I'm trying to remember, but I think that B is a specific type of sign. I don't know the signs that they got approved for there. The types of signs that they are, if they fall into that category or not, so I've got to talk to the sign company and see what these tenants, put up there, or what what they get permitted from the town. So I really got to get back to you on that specific, situation. But I mean, the discussion, but I gotta see if they fall within one of these 3 categories. If those
Yeah, I
are,
think, I agree. I think we're gonna have to do some digging on this if it's.
yeah,
compliant.
yeah, and we're happy to do that. I mean, I don't mind doing that on those.
Okay, so let's talk about just a few of these things that I think are low hanging fruit. I think we just gotta get a handle on reverse channel lighting signs
Yep.
and their appropriateness, and that it meets the, what the agreement is.
Mhm.
So if we're out of compliance, then we just gotta figure it out and talk about it.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I think that could be.
Regarding the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through sign, I tend to agree, Bob, that, I mean, it's not a listed sign on the side of the building, but I think from a light pollution and mitigation standpoint, I think that the Dunk's drive-through menu sign, behaves like a sign, even though it might not be a sign technically.
No, I agree. It should not be on 24 hours a day. This is the first time that I'm hearing that, but that's gonna get rectified.
Let's look at the special permit, because Duncan was a special permit, an individual one, and we can pull it up here. I would have been probably a lighting prohibition.
It's also not a wall mounted sign, so it's technically not under this question.
So then there's another part of the NBOD where it may be discussed.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Doug's had some specifics.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is an appropriate time to be dealing with it, for sure.
Well, I see it as 2 things. One is compliance, but 2 is just simple mitigation. I think, Bob, you understand the mitigation problem.
100%. I was not aware that was on 124 hours a day, and that's gonna be rectified with the tenant. That's gonna get changed.
And your concern, Trish, was that the sign was on after hours?
It's on all night.
It's on all night. Okay.
Yep. No, she's right on that. It should not. There's no need for that to happen.
So what was the finding about the number of illuminated signs?
So there is no number. It said that all signs can be illuminated.
And therefore, they can be either backlit or illuminated by a light shining on the non-illuminated sign.
So,
But backlit is okay.
no,
Oh,
so backlit is prohibited.
so only like a spotlight shining on a sign.
No, I don't think that's correct. It was backlit. This is,
Internal illumination is allowed.
yeah,
As long as it's not a,
Reverse channel lighting is not allowed to be facing Parkers.
Okay.
so the signs shall be composed of individual internally lit cut letters / text symbols or individual registered logos mounted directly on the braceway of the facade of the building. Sign shall not be composed of a single box, plastic elements containing multiple signs, letters, or logos. And so that's one, and then if you down to signage lighting, internally illuminated signage shall be subject to the following regulations. Box style internally illuminated signage is prohibited. Reverse channel internal lighted sign is prohibited facing Parker Street. Reverse channel lighted signage is permitted in other locations within the project, subject to the restrictions as applicable within the ZBL, this decision or other regulatory framework.
So
All right, so let's do this. Go ahead, Bob.
So Chris, I'm just looking up here what a reverse lit channel light is. And it's something with the letters are being lit up from the back. I don't know if I don't know if you can really see that. So it's a specific type of, lighting on a sign, and I don't think any of those fall into that category, but I'm gonna, follow up some more tomorrow on that to see. So I think that's what they were, prohibiting there, but we'll double check tomorrow on that.
Bill, I know there's been a number of observations about, I think, lighting that has been remaining on at night and stuff like that have been reported. Can you summarize the reports that you received on that?
The lights had been on both on the, sometimes internal to the store when it's closed, sometimes in the lighting for the actual signage. And there's the lighting, as I said, is all active code cases now. So the code, the building commissioners work on it. It's just been immediately they've had it. There's active
I believe I saw, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I saw an email that said that electricians were involved to try to remedy some of this. Can you just elaborate? Help me understand.
Yes,
that?
Chris. So there was a problem with a couple of signs. There's some controller issues because the signage is on a master lighting. So so they can be controlled and shut off at a certain hours. There's a problem with a couple of the controllers. I believe they're being switched tomorrow. And these are on the building signs. The parking lot lights is a whole different situation, which I'm happy to get into if you'd like, but I believe, by the end of this week, the issue with the signage controllers will be rectified. I believe they're going to be there tomorrow, swapping out the ones that they have issues with.
Okay, so that's sign lights and sign controls.
Yeah.
When you mentioned parking light, can you elaborate?
So there's been some parking lot light issues too, and we've been having problems with the management system for the lights almost since the inception that it was put in. We've really taken it up a level because we're not happy with the situation, and there's consistently been problems with the operation of the system and shutting off when they're supposed to be. So we've actually gotten our lawyers involved. The manufacturer is going to be out on the site, I think, in the next 2 weeks. And I believe there's going to be some major changes with the controls on those lights so that, the situation that's been occurring gets rectified. So I believe in the not too distant future that whole situation is going to be a lot better than it has been. I know there's been some issues with that, and I apologize, but it's really been problems with the software or whatever the system is that's controlling those lights there. And it's just, for some reason, it hasn't been right since the system was put in, but it's going to get changed.
Let's see, I'm trying to think about how to approach this because I do see there's a couple compliance points that need to be at least checked.
Yep.
It's really helpful for me to go back to make sure that what we, sort of a check and verify later on some of these items. And I know they're in code compliance, But we do hold the special permit for this, so I feel obligated to ensure that. The sort of the sign lightage problems that we've been observing do get rectified. So I'm trying to think of a way to do that. While also supporting,
Yeah.
you know, the sign request at the same time. Generally speaking, I don't have much of an issue with. I don't have an issue with each establishment having their own sign, so. But I do want to find a way to get into a good cadence to make sure that we're, you know. We're rectifying these things, so I don't know, does the board have any thoughts on how to proceed? On this, Bill, do you have any thoughts?
Well, we've had code issues in the past for various fractions, like with every project. And in this one, there's been fines levied at times, there's been, you know, that's our initial, the compliance mechanism. I can't remember how many fines, for different infractions were issued.
I'm not interested in talking about fines, I'm interested in talking about corrective actions.
Well, that's the first step, and I think everybody, you know, the process is there to address this, and before any action is taken, there has to be a determination that there is in fact a documented violation of the permit, and that's how it's done. So that, you know, the code enforcement officer makes a report to give it a specific time to rectify something. And particularly, there may be some leeway depending on the issue and depending on the interpretation of the code enforcement officer. But it would be out of the typical process to bypass that step.
Okay, I'm fine with that process having to occur. I'm trying to think of a way to, instead of being reactive, to be more proactive, is what I'm getting at. Bob, when I say to be more proactive than reactive, does that make sense to you on some of these lighting and sign things?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Chris. Like I said, we're still, you know, working through a couple issues over there, you know, like we always are, but, you know, we're aware of them and, you know, we're trying to get them resolved.
Yeah, and I will say, generally speaking, it is I want to support this. It does make it more challenging. I'm not saying impossible. I'm just saying it makes it more challenging. This is why I want to go proactive with this site, right? Because it makes it more challenging for us to simultaneously hear that there's sign violations while also approving signs at the same hearing. That's challenging for me. So that's why I want to figure out how to work with this project and get a cadence where we're proactive, right? So that we can see these things in real time and get them addressed a little bit better.
Yeah, I
Does
would
that-
say that I can't confirm that there is a sign violation. I can say
Right.
that there's lighting violation.
That's fine.
Right.
Like, I'm not using the proper terms and words.
Yeah, right. And the building commissioner, when issuing these, is pretty astute with this sort of thing. And the difference between backlight signs and a channellet sign, or I think the halo sign was
Right.
would be something that I'd have to look at it, sure, but I would defer to the building commissioner before I determine there was a problem. I'd have to see if it in fact was inconsistent. I'm not yielding that until.
Yeah, sure. So Bob, is there an urgency for the sign approval? Do you have more tenants that require signs at the moment? Can you just explain the sort of schedule and timing of all this?
Yeah, we have one tenant who's waiting for a sign, who's in the R5 building where the Italian restaurant is, right, Jim?
Yeah, so we, it's actually, and it's called Semper Laser. They actually opened up last week and I hear from the Daily, they cannot get a sign. So they are waiting and ideally, another one should be coming, Verizon Wireless, in the next probably 30 days. So I probably need 2 by the end of the year. They're small tier 3 signs. Past that, we're in some lease negotiations. I have some time, but yes, one is open without a sign. The other is going to be under construction and wants a
So-
sign.
Laser, like did apply for a sign and they were denied due
Mhm.
to these constraints. So that was denied 2 weeks ago, I think, was when they
Yep.
came in. to apply.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe you're correct, and they opened up officially last week.
Yeah.
And then it'll probably be a while before we need another one after that, right, Jim?
Yeah, so just those two, but are presently I need. Other than that, I'm good.
And I have a suggestion, Mr. Chair, it may. And keeping in mind that there's a 30-day, once the board makes a decision, there's a 30-day appeal period. That is tagged on to, or not, I'm sorry, 20 days. Appeal period is tagged on to it, so we do that. This board has in the past, particularly with this project, what I would suggest is make your decision on this. It's clearly in the interest of the town to not hinder our businesses in this way. On the other hand, it's clearly in the interest of the town to ensure that there's full compliance. What I would suggest is asking the applicant to return in a 30-day for compliance check. If need be, we can bring the zoning enforcement officer as well, but I'd separate the two. This is just, and if the board is comfortable with that, we do that, and I'm sure the applicant would be willing to come in. The town always has the option to, if there is a repeated non-compliance, and, we can go that way, and then it could eventually open up the permit. But I think that would take care of the board's dilemma at this point. Because if the board is to approve this tonight, we still have another 20 days after it's recorded, so we're still, there could be a number of businesses waiting there and then would. So,
And that would be the December, or potentially, depending on what you guys decide, but there is a meeting December 27th.
Oh, wonderful.
Required.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
ask a curious question.
you may, Jim, of course.
First, you've heard a lot of discussion tonight. And by the people here and do you feel comfortable that if we approve this tonight with the appeal period and so on and so forth, and the demonstrations by these folks that they're working on these issues, that these issues will get resolved?
I am willing to trust you and the managers in town hall to make sure that it is.
I'm sorry, Trish, I didn't hear.
Yes, I'm willing to trust the planning board and the people that manage these topics in town hall that compliance will be enforced moving forward.
Well, that's important because I realize that we could utilize the appeal period, but that means you gotta go on, if you don't like what's going on, you have to appeal. That's added expense for you and everybody else. So if you feel comfortable that we can find a resolution, then I would certainly I would like to move that we approve the plan as presented this evening.
I would like to ask that you at least discuss my request for mitigation and maybe adjustment of the hours that the signs are allowed to be lit. The zoning bylaws are very clear that within the town in general, signs are not allowed to be lit when the establishment is not open for business. That was originally the rule in Exhibit 8. And then within the latest operations manual, that restriction was kind of an exception was made to that restriction, which really erodes Exhibit 8 at all, because there's been a number of exceptions to zoning bylaws. And it seems to me that it serves no purpose to have those business lights on after the last business.
I agree with you.
And I would like to remind the board that in the zoning bylaws, section 10.4.3, item number 5, the special permit granting authority may impose additional conditions and limitations, including but not limited to the following as it deems necessary. Number 5 is limitation on the number, location, type, and size of signs or illumination or modification of the design thereof. So I do believe it is within your purview to make that modification if you grant this special permit.
Mr. Chair,
Hold on, Bill. Any other thoughts from the board? On how to proceed?
Since the total number of allowable signs is not changing, I really want to make the revision, but I am troubled that the operation plan has somehow superseded the permitted hours.
that's,
Again, 6
yeah, Bill, that's incorrect, if I may.
And yeah, let's dive into that.
Oh,
This is, yeah.
It can't be on, the business is closed, the sign has to be on, right?
No, this is incorrect. The NBFB is an overlay district that has a number of mechanisms that, if it's specifically called out in an overlay district, it,
No,
may,
I'm referencing exhibit E,
Mhm.
section C1.
okay.
Does that no longer apply?
Let's just read it out loud.
Nation lighting is permitted only during those hours in which the associated establishment is open to the public.
That's in the planning board, decision, which was at a public hearing, was superseded at a subsequent hearing. Changes. This is, that's what I'm saying, this has all been handled previously by the board. Now, I did, because I figured there might be an issue with some confusion, reviewing the minutes for these hearings with the operations manual, all this was covered by the board. Including the issue that the NBOD is an overlay district that supersedes. If it's specifically called out. If nothing is called out in the NBOD, it would revert to the underlying zoning district, in this case is industrial. Or in the case of a general zoning bylaw, like the hours of operation. So this was,
That are no longer, in effect, have they been finished?
the changes to the operations manual roughly a year ago. We changed a lot of this. Yeah, we can share a screen here, but this, and this was done again, this was public hearing. This was a,
That's all, okay, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
tell me what is in this project exhibit E no longer is in effect.
in exhibit E.
You're saying C1 is no longer, has been superseded. What else, is anything else been superseded?
We have to look for it. And I can't speak to the entire operations manual. I can tell you with the lighting, without looking, I'd have to research that. But the lighting, we can talk about. I mean, that's, and the signage lighting here, we'll pull it up. And this is in the current operations manual that we,
I do remember this.
Yep, so it was updated August 4th, 2021. And the site lighting building signage.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading on this. On this one, so I sometimes.
Can you get rid of that right side comment?
I can't. Yep. Come on. There we go. Okay, so this is the one we are looking at.
Let's just cover this fully. So can you
Okay.
scroll left a little? Thank you. So site lighting, full property. See attached lighting plan. Which I recall has illumination. Basically an illumination map. Site lighting pylon. What is pylon referred to again?
that was the front. The front line was right the ball.
On a dusk off at 11:30. On at 5 AM to dawn. Okay, then site lighting, building signage. On at dusk, off at 11:30. Or off at liquor permit required time.
The liquor permit had a different specification in there.
I mean, so if this is the language, can we ask the property owners if this is important to them? I mean, clearly it's causing a problem. So it would, I guess at the time, I remember being concerned with the pylon lighting, with the parking. Those much taller, brighter signs. I mean, brighter lights that were a security issue, a security concern, or a weather event concern. Whereas the building signage. I guess it didn't even occur to me that all of the tenants would just automatically be on until 11:30 PM. As opposed to just there was some concern with the grocery store in terms of workers who stay later at night, right? Keeping the area more lit and things like that. But if we're talking about like Jersey Mike's, which closes at 9 PM, having its lights on until 11:30.
So Bob, I think the question is. And maybe this isn't. This might be for another hearing, or another meeting of us. But it'd be helpful for me to drill down to understand the reasoning for that language, and if it's why it's useful for you. And that way we can, if there's a way to better design that language, then we can look at doing so. But for me, I have to understand why it's important to your team, that language the way it is. Is that a simple question or is that a complicated?
Yeah. Yeah, so Chris, I'm gonna tell you what, and I think, maybe we need to have another meeting just on, talk about that issue, but from our standpoint, and, we're not looking for the lights to be on, any longer than they have to. If everybody's closed at a much earlier hour, I mean, it's something we can look at. I don't know that. I don't know what time Planet Fitness closes or the restaurants close, but, we're definitely willing to look at that to see if we can, roll that back, before 11:30. Jim, are you aware of actually open now?
The restaurants definitely are. Then you get a timer issue.
Well, I'm saying the whole thing. I mean, if everything's going off at 11:30 now and the last business is out of there, long before that, then maybe that's something we can look at.
Yeah, I'd have to check with each individual.
Right. So I mean, it's only a couple we
What they
gotta
might
check.
have a special night.
Yeah, I mean, we're only talking the restaurants and probably Planet Fitness. I'm not 100% sure exactly what time they close. So that, there could be a possibility. We will look at that and see if there's something we can do to improve that situation.
So my understanding was that they are all run on one individual system.
That's correct, Julia. Yes.
So if you wanted and all of the businesses close at different times. So if they were required to turn off when they close, is that even possible if they're all in the same system?
No, it wouldn't be. Not the way that system is set up.
So I did not work here, I think,
Yep.
at
Which I think is why we came in
at the 11:30.
to deal with that. But like I said, I don't disagree with what Trish is saying. If there's a way we can roll that back, we will look at that.
Okay, so here's what I have on the table, for us. I think there's some future work. And I think this is gonna require another, I don't know what to call it, another meeting, another hearing. We'll save that for later, but here's what I have on the table for us to discuss in the future and continue to get resolution on. The reverse channel lighting, I think we just need a code check on that to understand if that's occurring, and then we have to work with Bob and his team to figure out. Have a consensus of understanding of it and figuring out what to do next, if anything. To take a look at what to do with the Dunkin' Donuts sign, I think that's more in your court, Bob.
And we will take care of that. We will speak to them tomorrow on that.
And then I think it's for all of us to specifically me. Bill, the town and Capital Group to talk about signage, lighting. And controls, just to see what we can do to improve that situation.
Yep,
And then I think it's on you, Bob. My last thing I have here is site lighting, so I think that's in your court to work out and then report back to us.
yeah. And again, we're hoping after the manufacturer's out on site, I think in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have a resolution, long-term resolution to that issue finally.
I'm thinking maybe the first meeting in January would be a good point
Yeah.
to circle back and have a public. Would it be a public meeting, Bill? What would you call this?
Be a meeting, not a hearing.
Not a hearing, of course.
You made a compliance, yeah,
Sure, a compliant
meeting, yeah.
meeting, okay.
Yep,
We posted as a.
So we would post it, but we wouldn't,
Yeah.
send it out to
You
everyone
wouldn't
like we,
advertise it, you post it,
I'm sorry,
post it, not advertise it.
yes, exactly.
So that's what I'm thinking for an intermediate step. How does it sound to the board overall? As a general plan or
Good report release.
And that meeting would be January 10th.
Natalie? What do you think?
That's fine. I like the idea of a compliance meeting.
And Bill? Crenshaw?
Yeah, I'm as part of that. January 10th would be a compliance meeting separate from this hearing.
Required by this hearing.
All right, by the-
Required by the.
Sorry, I had you join us that night. Thank you.
In general, that's fine, although I'm also tempted. If we were to move on action tonight to have a condition that. Building 1 and 3 lighting. Has to close. Turn off when the business. Closes. Though they're not currently in operation. They can work out the switching on those. Easier than they can retrofit existing.
So Bob, what was just proposed was to say that. For building R1 and R3. That. This decision would include that. Lights, sign lights are shut off at close of business for those establishments inside R1 and R3. And as I know that's. Probably a big question to put on your plate at the moment. Is that an easy question or a hard question?
I don't think we can, Bob, right?
yeah,
It's tied into like one
I
system.
mean,
that-
I think that's something maybe, we should discuss at the January 10th meeting. The overall hours of the, the tenant signage. Just so we can get some answers. On hours from the tenants, and like I said, we're not looking to have them on. Any longer than we need to, but,
So what you're saying is there's technical reasons that are preventing that from occurring? Did I get that right?
yeah, I mean, as of today, so I mean, I'd rather, I think. That's an issue. That maybe we can discuss it, in January, and they maybe have an overall, solution that works out for everybody.
That's a change to the operations manual.
Right.
And this is, the number of signs is not part of the operations manual.
I get that,
Right.
yes.
But we are updating the sign exhibit plan, which shows the locations of all those signs, which are different than currently approved, so. I think we have the ability to make conditions on that.
Mm.
Yeah, I gotta think about that.
Are you granting a special permit? The special permit would grant relief from the current plan, correct?
The modification.
You're modifying exhibit E of the existing permit.
Yes, the request is to modify exhibit E, the approved signing plan of the existing special permit.
And what would be modifying it to, Chris?
There's specific language that the applicant has proposed. essentially. That changes a few words in this paragraph. It's on the back of it.
Tier 3,
Um, and we'll read that if we make a motion.
okay. Let me do it.
So here's what I'm thinking, big picture. To close the hearing and to discuss to see if we want to improve this proposed thing, not understanding what the change is. I would propose to condition the change that we have a compliance meeting at the beginning of January. And then Bob, in general, it's something I do during my day job is to do kind of annual checks, semi-annual checks on different properties as part of a maintenance check schedule. Would your team be okay if we started talking about having, say, and this is part of my proactive approach, to have an operations and maintenance sidewalk, say, once a year or twice a year, and then to discuss those in open hearings, open meetings? Would that be amenable?
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, we have no problem with that.
Yes. Because from my day job, like I said, it just helps getting out ahead of things so that, you
Yeah,
know, came together.
and that's what we want. I mean, it's like, this Dunkin' Donuts, the menu thing, this is the first I'm hearing that, but, we're more than happy to, deal with that situation.
So what I'd like to do also, Bill, is to schedule these guys in, maybe before the planting season in the spring. Bob, you understand why I'm thinking that, right? Just to kind of give a site over, just like check, say like March, April after the snow
Yep.
melt. Kind of see
Mhm.
how things look.
Yep,
And then
absolutely.
maybe in the fall right before the planting season again. And I'm thinking about trees and stuff like that too, Bob, because I know that's
Yep.
part of the owner.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, don't have a problem with that.
Big picture, what I'm thinking is that we do those site checks twice a year. Do a site walk, have a sort of maintenance checklist to go through with the teams. That's not part of this decision, but I just want to give everyone a sense of that's what I'm thinking. We can get ahead of some of these things and then continue to do good work.
Yep.
This decision, I would propose that we condition it for that January, the first meeting in January for further this compliance discussion on lighting. So that we can resolve the items that I listed. Bill Crenshaw, would you mind proposing the language for this particular thing?
Yeah, we follow the kind of.
And can you just cover the language for the revised exhibit?
Right, so,
And then make sure Bob understands that, what we're saying.
so what my suggestion would be is that we revise exhibit E 1A1 to read sign quantity. One sign can be allocated to each circular sign symbol indicated on the approved signage concept plan for a total of 49 building mounted wall signs of all types, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And further recognize that the approved signage concept plan is now signed exhibit plan dated November 14, 2022. And further that our decision would have a condition that we have a compliance meeting in January 2023.
Catch that, Bob?
Yes, yes.
What about, we discussed briefly, interchanging of tier 2 and tier 3 signs. Are we looking to add language into that?
Bill had said, you want me to read back what you said, Bill?
Actually, I guess there would be a second sentence in the revision of 1A1. Second sentence would be for each tier 2 sign symbol, the development needs to tier 3 signs, such that the total number of signs on site shall remain at 49.
Bob, is that okay?
Yes,
Do I have to make a motion and read all that back now?
You can say
Is that what you're gonna make me do?
I don't have a problem. Just in the loop, but
Okay, go ahead,
whatever.
do it.
Mr. Chair, before we make the motion, there is, with this, NBID and the special permit, the board wants to make a determination if, that the request is generally consistent with the Maynard Crossing concept plan. And secondly, that the request and the associated findings remain consistent with the original site plan.
And I missed that, Bill.
I'm not,
No.
no, I didn't give you that.
Did you? Oh, that's the news.
Right.
Can we,
Here's one and two. That's what it has to be.
Go ahead.
can we discuss mitigation for the 20 additional signs being constructed?
What would you? Yeah, you can, what would you? do that?
I don't have anything in mind, but I think that we should be cognizant of the fact that it is an increase. I mean, obviously, we knew there was gonna be more signage. But going forward, I would like to recognize the fact that especially if they do end up all being illuminated signs, and especially if the, nighttime lighting issue is not able to be resolved. I do think that mitigation to the abutting properties should be considered.
I don't have a sense of. What mitigation would look like.
Taller trees.
Oh, trees.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm inexperienced in this front, so I don't know how to proceed with that conversation, to be honest.
Is it part of the conversation that can be had during a site walk? I'm not sure either.
I mean, I get your point, right? Like, if. I can think of analogies where mitigation, I can think of, other circumstances about mitigation.
Right.
I don't know how to work it in at the moment.
Can we make sure that it's considered during these possible future?
I,
The vegetation assessment in the spring and in the fall in terms of replanting things, take into consideration the increased lighting and therefore maybe try and come up with something that has more density, more height, something like that.
I think we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that can absolutely be on the table for discussion. I'm approaching this as we can, that all sort of stakeholders show, good faith efforts to make improvements, and that's how I approach this. I'm hoping and I haven't, there's other projects I've been on where you gotta talk about mitigation.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we all can, stay at the table and do good work. That's what I'm hoping to do.
Me too.
So, is that fair?
Sure.
And I think, so with the plan that you're approving, the mitigation or the thing that you're trying to get at, maybe it's, you're approving the sizes and where they're going. And so, by approving more, tier 3s, and you're not approving any tier 1s, that's a huge part of that. So I think that's It's not like you're having a tier one
Right.
on R1. By having multiple tier twos, you know, that's where you could see.
Certainly, and to be clear, I also agree, every tenant should have a sign. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I want to continue to keep in mind the just overall effect of having 20 more lights, that's all. 20 more lights, so. Just something to keep in mind as we move forward, trying to keep aware of everything that's going on at the site.
If it helps, I'm pretty sure that total square footage of sign is decreased.
Right.
Allowed total square footage of sign is less under the proposed change.
We have,
Could you explain your math? I just don't understand how that works.
Well, I mean, the tier ones are 150, the tier twos are 90, the tier threes are 32. And we're allowing the same number of maximum signs. But I'm pretty sure we're fixing the number of tier ones at one, whereas the original concept had multiple tier ones.
Right.
Four.
And four tier ones equals oh, crap load of tier three.
so. You're saying the total square footage of signage is not going to exceed the original decision.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Therefore is consistent with the original sign concept plan.
Is this chart, what's this comparing? Because when you do math on this chart, the square footage increases.
I'm not sure what that chart is. Sorry, Trish.
I'm sorry, it's building signage of the spreadsheet approved. Tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and then proposed. I think it was part of the application.
It might be that you could, depends on your point of view on this, right? So if you're looking at it just adding 20 signs, yeah, obviously that adds square footage. But Bill Crenshaw's point was that the original decision allowed for 49 signs in total. And the 49 signs, and now we're maintaining that 49 signs in total. It's just that all the signage overall will be smaller than what the initial decision envisioned. So in aggregate, compared to the initial decision, since we have smaller signs overall, compared to what the initial decision envisioned, it's going to have a smaller total square footage. So, yeah, I'm sure there's other ways to look at it, but if we're just going back to, I cringe at the word originalism, but if we go back to originalism on this, that's I think that's the concept. And Bob, Bob, I think you understand that, you know, why we take this seriously in that, you know, any discussion on mitigation is, you know, an important discussion, but I think you take, to me, I've noticed you're taking this all very seriously tonight.
Absolutely. And believe me, you know, if there's issues that we got to deal with, we're going to deal with them. And we have been, you know.
What I want to do is continue to work on that.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, there's all for improvement, Chris, and, you know, we're looking to be good neighbors and not, you know, create issues for anybody.
We have, I'll just, since it's on record, we have decades and decades of work to do.
Yep,
on the
absolutely.
property.
Yep.
So now, do I have to read that entire thing again?
Oh, yeah, because you got all the findings and stuff you have to do.
But first, you want to do what Bill said, right?
It'll say.
Maybe
It's on one.
Okay.
concept plan.
Good.
All right, so. I will make a motion to modify Exhibit E Section C. Section 1A1. With the following language. One sign shall be allocated for each circular sign symbol indicated on the approved signage concept plan for a total of 49 building mounted wall signs of all types, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 in aggregate. That tier 2 signs may be interchanged for tier 3 signs as needed. Let me say that again, tier 2 signs can be substituted with tier 3 signs as needed by the applicant.
For each tier 2, the developer may substitute 2 tier 3.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. For each tier 2, the developer may substitute 2 tier 3. That another condition is that we will meet for the first meeting in January, which is January. Hold on, Dave. January 7th, 10th. The condition will be that the applicant will join us in a meeting for January 10th for a compliance meeting regarding items discussed tonight. I also move that the board determine that this request is generally consistent with the Maynard Crossing concept plan approved during town meeting on October 6th, 2016 and dated June 28th, 2016. I further motion that this board determine that this request is consistent with the approved special permit decision originally approved on October 16, 2017 and subsequently amended.
August 16th.
August 16, 2017 and subsequently amended. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chris, did you indicate that the approved signage concept plan is from November 14th?
And the motion will include, Bill, that the language discussed will include that the signage plan is approved per the signage exhibit plan presented tonight and dated November 14th, 2022. Did I get all that? Well, now I need a second, guys.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I thought this was gonna be a quick meeting.
All right, since this is a hybrid meeting, I'll do roll call. Jim,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Bill, and
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes, so that's 5-0, Bill, for that extensive motion I made. And now I have to close the hearing, correct?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor by roll call, Jim,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Bill Crenshaw,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Trish.
Done deal.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great,
Thank you,
Thank
Jim. Bob.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
thank you.
Before I forget, guys, so hold on, Trish, guys, thank you. Thank you. Please keep the conversation open and let me know how else we can discuss. So, go ahead, Bill.
Our petition for December 13th. I have large, this is for this is Sugarloaf
25 Mason Street.
by Mason Street. I have large copies if anybody wants one. It's another marijuana.
Oh,
Yeah.
Underneath the
Underneath
bucket.
our-
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's another space in the basement,
The
the lower levels,
There's no, right?
the lower levels. Yep.
$5. Look at it and.
Yeah.
Where's yourself?
No.
Yeah, I'm a visual person, so I had to go and look at the site,
Oh,
and when you look at it, it makes sense.
No, they're gonna open up the side between the two banks for parking. It's
Correct.
now fenced. They're gonna remove a fence.
So.
I because I never asked that same question, and the answer was no, that was going to stay fenced off.
Not ours.
But let me look at the plans right now and tell you, yep,
So Bill, I know one thing that would help me is some of their layout.
That would give us.
I could see on the aerial.
That's why.
Yeah, cause I get a little lost on like patio and stuff and like where the hell that is into the parking lot and all that, so.
So you want me to use aerials, like the city by that, I should say.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I'd just like to see the overlay of their layout. Including the patio on an area.
we can request
I
that
just
from the
wanna
client.
see, you know, I just wanted to.
Yeah, because he's
I don't understand.
asking another great question about the
Okay.
parking and
Do you
they,
mind making a note of that?
yep, I can email the
You said- you
client,
said,
the applicant.
I have to make a decision on
You
that.
just send me a.
Yes.
Email on
Yep, so, yeah, that is one thing that, we can request them as supplemental information that they can give us by the time they have their, hearing, well, I'll ask them to give it to us ASAP. But then we can also ask that that is a part of their, presentation to you in person, so they have, they're ready to pull that up.
Bill, have you seen anything on the Carl Pablo Road and Walton Street, Martha?
Well,
I do have one, before we move on to that, I do need to make a decision, I wanted the board's input on this. Since this project of 25 Mason Street is under the DOD, we could request design review on this as we would for other buildings. So in the past, for some of the larger buildings that have been done in the DOD, we've requested basically an architectural design review to help us from a professional standpoint to explain why that project is particularly consistent with the feel of the DOD or not. We did this for, I think, 150 Main Street, 42 Summer Street. This thing has, some design features on the backside. How do you want to approach this? Tim Hess is our only contracted design consultant. However, he's the one doing this stuff. So he can't do that. He can't be our design reviewer. We can skip design review and put it on the applicant to demonstrate it to us. Or I can make Bill work really, really hard to go find another design review.
I'm sorry, I haven't really looked yet. What are the proposed changes drastically affecting the architecture of the current building in the back?
Facade. Yes,
Trying to get it.
yeah, we should. Yeah, just to be, to give you a little history on it, design review is required in certain districts and for certain size projects. Typically, what we had done in the past was we have a criteria in our zoning bylaws, and then we refined it in our planning board rules and regulations. We would leave it to the applicant to demonstrate how they're, it would just go down the line. Here's how they're consistent. Here's what we're doing with this. When Parker Street came along, Maynard Crossing, the board at the time felt that it was, that it was daunting, and I can understand that, and they wanted to utilize a design professional to kind of assist them with it. So we under Mass Law 53G, I think it is, you can use a consultant and have the applicant absorb the cost. We subsequently used it for the two McDonald's projects, which was 42 Summer Street and 115 Main, and we've used it on and off. So, it's not as frequent as we would use engineering, for example, but it's up to the board. you know, I think that the criteria is pretty clear in our zoning bylaws and in our planning board regulations, that we could say to a professional architect, describe this, and if it satisfies the board, not. If we brought in a design consultant, which we could do as well, then maybe they say, no, it doesn't, or whatever. But the facade here, this is what we're talking about.
Note on that is, at this point, we are still waiting on peer review funds. So it's not looking like you are going to have your engineering with, peer review, which is required through this, done by that meeting. So if you decide that you want, design review, both, like all peer reviews, we'd open that hearing, but at this point, it's looking like you're gonna have to continue to get that feedback from, the third parties.
There's a larger challenge here though, because Bill and I have been trying to find another design firm to provide contractual services in case of moments of conflict of interest. We don't have that, so but I wanted to get the board's feedback to see what our options are to not not do design consulting review. To work really hard to try to find someone or put it on the applicant to provide a thorough presentation on why this meets the DoD objective.
The one thing I neglected to add, Chris, the other reason is we had a hard time getting some of our applicants to bring an architect in to explain it.
Yeah.
That was the.
Yes, but for this case, I'm saying those are our three options here.
Yeah.
Because this team does have an architect on it.
Improvement.
Yeah, and, yeah, so here,
Sorry, I wanted to get the board's
Well,
feedback.
it's a radical difference, right? I mean,
Yeah.
show the proposal, it's totally different,
yep, so here's the
Yeah.
existing,
totally.
and then let's just, buzz through these engineering plans and look at their. Here is the proposed.
But to be,
Go down a little bit there, so it's gray and glassy and.
Modern.
Very modern.
And then the patio, this is, they're gonna be putting in this significant change. And then they're also proposing, this mural on the side, I think.
Well, not proposing, they're proposing to allow.
Dedicated wall mural, yep, and then. The biggest change in the front is just gonna be, that overhang, awning. But so that's. Those are the.
I'm a little conflicted because I mean, the rear change is. Exactly why it requires a review.
Correct.
I'm not sure that the original intent ever thought about the rear of buildings.
to be quite frank, this is the rear of the building that faces all the other building dumpsters, correct? So if we're talking
Or
about.
the front of LEPL.
Or the front of a really nice vision.
Yeah.
Of the future of that area.
I'm not trying to. I do think that a concern with the design review is having incomplete or unexplained architectural renderings and drawings. Which it seems as of this point that will not be a concern. Which I think we should take into consideration, I mean, right, not that we wouldn't need it, but that in this case, that is not the reason that we would need it. Again, yes, you're right, it does face the front of other businesses, none very close, none immediately adjacent to it. Immediately adjacent, I think we have. This was already one of the better looking buildings in terms of.
And I think you make a great point, because what the decision you have to make is based on whether or not it's meeting the criteria that you guys decide. Whether or not we can find, like, we will find an architect if we need to. That can't really be a part of your decision, because then that becomes a conflict of interest. If someone were to come and challenge, they'd be like, that's not a good enough reason to not require a design review. That you don't have another architect available.
No, well, we're not suggesting we're not suggesting no design review, and that's in the bylaws. What we're saying is using an architect.
Yeah, so my options are. That we don't need design review. and this is on the chair makes this decision, so my options are no design review. Design review. Or I'm putting a third option there that we communicate with the applicant and instruct them to do a thorough presentation. On how this meets.
We have done a design review, that's what I'm saying, we don't have that option. We don't have to use a design reviewer.
Yes, okay, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
Third party, period.
So no third party reviewer, third party reviewer. Or I just instruct the applicant. In this particular case, we need a lot more information because of the site circumstances.
Do we have the option of, in the middle of the hearing, if we suddenly feel that we need a third party reviewer, then getting one at that point of the hearing, or is
Sure.
that an issue?
Are we allowed to say out loud that this architect has in the past demonstrated the ability to speak specifically to the details of the DoD guidelines, and therefore that gives us,
I think the concern,
That's not gonna be part of my. But. You're welcome to think it.
okay.
Yeah.
any applicant
I'm saying, I mean.
who's
this
done
is
work
all-
in Maynard would be, I mean, I would think, I would want to know that they've done work in Maynard.
Right.
Right.
This is my point, is that we know that this applicant has dealt with our DoD guidelines before. That's relevant to me, because someone who's coming in blind might not understand what they need to present to us. I think that's relevant. I'm not saying they get a pass. I'm gonna listen to every word, I'm going to consider every word, but the point is, they're not coming in with no architect, not knowing what's going on.
Which we've had in the past.
Yes, we first did that, so I think it makes a difference.
Bruce,
Yes, sir.
since Tim has designed this project here, and he has done our last two peer reviews. I think we may be doing him a disservice if we don't ask for peer review. I don't want anybody to ever say, oh, you didn't do peer review here, but because he was. I don't want it to reflect that the work he's done for us before is the reason we didn't have him doing it. We didn't ask him to have a peer review now. I think we ought to be consistent.
So that's not my question. My question is, so if I would, I didn't get specific about this, but. The intent of the DoD design peer review was clearly, from my point of view, thought about at the building facade, the front of the building facade, and you compare that to the surrounding frontage of building facades. That's how we've gone about it thus far. And so when I saw a rear of the building, I don't have a good sense on whether a third-party design review should be part of that or not. If this was some. I don't know how to approach the backside of the building, because it ties to a whole back area. It's just more complicated. So my thought was about the site circumstances and not about design reviewers. And that's why I was taking a different perspective. Not that your perspective is wrong.
No, I mean, I also do think that it's the back of the building. I do realize that it is nearby to other buildings that have complicated fronts and backs. But my point is that there are like a lot of dumpsters all around, so this is clearly a different situation than the front of a building facing Summer Street, the front of a building facing Main Street.
And I don't want to put the onus on the applicant for all of the area in the back of that building. But I want it to be, I want the area behind it to be considered just like we would consider the frontage of the building in terms of its. Synergy with other frontage of buildings. I kind of want to get like cultural district to like help weigh in on this, but I don't know how appropriate that is either. I just want other support to be like, yeah, that ties in really well with what we're thinking for the bowl. I just don't know how to go about doing that.
Basin.
The basin.
Is it the future? Of the next project?
I just like the next thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
And the dumpsters, you can paint them.
Well.
Just paint them and cover them.
Anyway, I'll think about it. Any more thoughts you can, yeah, go ahead.
It just strikes me, we're, at some point in the future, we're gonna need another design review. So we might as well start with that this night. And, yeah. My personal view is the back in this context is very different from the front facade. And, you know, there are goals at play here to make Gala Court a little better than it's been, and move the dumpsters and recreate something back there. And so you've seen a lot of the changes that have been taking place. When I look at that, and I'll just say, that's not New England architecture. So you're taking away New England architecture and you're putting that in there. I don't know if that's consistent with what we want.
I think a rip on is we need to update our design review regulations.
No, we just did. We just did like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, remember?
Yeah, well, the world's changing, Bill.
And, just on to your point, no matter what, with the Adam Stack project, we will have design review for that, for
That's
sure.
right.
And we'll have different architects involved in that.
It's, the only thing I would say is that just that if I think it would be a good idea to consider the scale of projects. And because it, you know, I understand your point in this, but you guys have identified your questions. And it would be up, that's what my whole point is, that it would be like, okay, why is it, like Bob said, it's not particularly New Englandy looking. Okay, why, you know, do you want to engage on a smaller, you know, on the smaller projects, do you want to bring in an architect for everyone? We haven't done that, and it's, you know, I don't know what the cost is on it, but I would,
There's a scale to it.
there's a scale, right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I wouldn't want to say, oh, we're gonna have you know, a sign, you know, a signed special permit. Do we really require an architect to come in and, you know, I think we have to kind of weigh it. On the other hand, like, look how good the McDonald projects came out, you know, the last two, with a professional, but that was, you know, different.
Those are extremes and those were anchor
Yeah.
points, but we're definitely in the middle. So anyway, if there's more feedback, please send me more feedback. I'll make a decision.
It's just the counterpoint to scale, its location.
Yeah, sure. Sure, DOD is that, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with the design standard, believe, not at all. No, I agree.
I don't think there's a bad decision.
And
One.
to your question about whether or not where that parking is. So if you look at this plan, the area between the bank and the building is currently blocked off.
Mhm.
That's what you're talking about? Yeah, that's not changing at all on that side.
Oh, okay.
No, the only, that there is currently parking along the building and that's going to be,
That's on the other side.
yeah, and that's gonna be modified for like ADA compliance, but, parking's gonna stay over there.
So another thing, Bill, I will want to know is they own all that land. Does the town have a legal easement through it?
We have that information. I don't know.
So
Yeah.
I'll-
Yeah, we just had a survey done a couple of years of that whole thing.
Okay.
I don't believe we
Find out
do.
what we got.
You know what that is, easy.
Give me one moment, I can answer.
I can tell you this, any building back there in that basin area. I think needs to consider the future of the basin. And I don't know what that means. So. This is why I would love to have a future vision for the basin.
Well, we are working on that.
But that's how I would approach.
Nail it, close, but we have to nail it.
Fine, now look court. Can't even agree on the meeting.
You know the beating, like, the whole, and calling it the basin.
Get to Nason Court.
Yeah, look.
It's the beast.
Well, call it the basin.
We can't even. I want a design vision, we can't even agree on it.
Okay, it's on the map. Really? Yeah, it's what Google says.
I'm not getting involved in this one.
What else you got?
These my battles. Enough.
Good, fine.
We have, on the our next meeting, we have that, and I think there's something else. Here's,
We do not-
yeah, we don't.
we do not have a right of way in that area.
Not to the left of the parking?
On either side.
Really?
It'll be an interesting discussion,
Oh,
and that the DOD is very focused on pedestrian accessibility in the town.
So the rights of way, that the town owns is the one next to Azakar going down. And then the one, next.
Oh, you can check right away, you didn't check, you,
Looking at easement.
I'm looking at the survey.
It's all right, we have it.
there is no easement.
Bill,
Yeah.
isn't there something?
I knew we didn't know.
Driving back in my
Yeah.
head here, but the property between the bank and Bavico.
Mhm.
Okay, now you say that's not a right of way, right?
That's,
But if it's been open to the public for a number of years, isn't that deemed to be open?
Prescriptive easement, you're thinking of. Yeah. I defer to legal counsel on that one. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to.
Prescriptive hearing, I think prescriptive easement.
Yeah.
I don't think a prescriptive easement is on an improved area, is it? I think, I'm not gonna check, but I
I
don't
know
know.
one way to
We're just-
navigate this and then it becomes.
Because that would be like, I'm not, I'll check, all right.
Yeah,
prescriptive
we'll look
easement.
at that
Alright.
and see.
There you go. That one, that's a good one.
All right, any other feedback?
Well, the reason I say that is, on Mill Street. At number 9 Mill Street. There's a street that goes in to service 3 or 4 buildings in there.
Right,
And that was owned by. Actually, Mr. Naylor, the real Mr. Naylor, who owned a house on Mill Street. And he owned it, but it was open to the public for years and years and years, I mean, 50 years or so. And because of that, it was deemed to be open and nobody could infringe upon it because it was open to the public.
yeah, I. We'll have to dig.
I mean, I remember that because I own property in the.
Yeah, it typically was for access. And where there was and this, because I mean. I don't know, people would probably say that, I mean, you. I don't know, I can imagine now, if, now the mill pond, can you imagine the mill pond, everybody.
Yes,
We have an easement for this whole thing, it's ours.
it's a question to ask.
I'll ask. Could it be? Now, I'll tell you what, when they did put the fence up, there by the bank. I did hear from some residents, they were like, okay, you're fencing this off. I go, "It's our property."
Well, he owned the property, he said they're gonna put the fence up.
So
If
the
nobody
question is, can he do that on the
If
other
nobody can
side?
test it,
But if it's his property, why couldn't we?
So that's the question we'll ask legal, is, what are our rights to protect that right of way? Not legal right of way,
Not a
but-
prescriptive easement.
So we'll get,
That's a good question.
we'll send that email out tomorrow and get an answer back to you
hmm,
before the hearing.
By Thanksgiving.
You know the status, I don't want.
Oh.
I don't want to know the strategy, I just want to know the status.
That's fine, we'll figure that out. Do you guys want to meet on December 27th, or would you like to cancel that meeting?
That's what I wanted to know next. So for the first meeting in December, one item I'd like to put on the agenda is to talk about planning board goals for 2023.
I mean,
Yes. Yes,
So you're keeping the 27th meeting,
no, what's the first meeting?
13.
13th,
I want to talk about fiscal goals, not fiscal goals, yes,
annual.
annual goals of planning board. So come with ideas, you can look at our previous goals and we can work off those.
Oh,
Yeah, keeping in mind, we have also, when you're thinking about that, remember we have powder mill. We're gonna have, be in full swing for that, and we have MBTA communities.
Yes, I'm more.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So don't get.
and then, do we have anything scheduled for the 27th?
So currently, there is an application I am working with the applicant. They have not, they have not submitted, they have not advertised yet. They are anticipating to submit by Monday. So the
Yes.
answer is no, you still have an opportunity to cancel said meeting.
I'm fine canceling.
Okay.
Anyone else with any other feedback, guys?
I'm fine with your fun.
I'm not here, I'm away.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, all right, 27th is canceled.
So I will move that upcoming project application to
There's gonna be a big snowstorm on the 27th, that can be good.
this. I think that's, I think we are all happy with that option,
Yes.
so thank you.
Don't think. Thank you, snowstorm. Anything else, Kevin? Okay, Jim, before Bill speaks up again, do us a favor.
You met Bill Crenshaw.
Just go for it, Jim.
I like to move to close the meeting.
All in favor by voice? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's 5-0.
Well done.
Thank you, everybody.
Good meeting.